The moment I realized my boss was a failed poet, everything changed: my perspective, my attitude, my entire outlook on the situation. I'd been dealing with his condescending comments, his constant criticism, and his unbearable arrogance for months, but this new information was the key to unlocking the truth. What was driving this man to be so cruel, so heartless? I started to notice the little things: the way he'd recite obscure poetry in meetings, the way he'd decorate his office with quotes from famous writers. It was all a facade, a desperate attempt to prove his intellectual superiority. But deep down, he was struggling, he was hurting. His poems, the ones he thought no one would ever see, were filled with pain, with sorrow, with regret. I couldn't help but wonder, what had happened to him? What had driven him to give up on his dreams, to abandon his passion? And then it hit me, the realization that his cruelty was a cover, a shield to hide his own insecurities. I decided to use this knowledge to my advantage, to fight fire with fire, or rather, to fight poetry with poetry. I started writing, pouring my heart and soul into a series of poems that exposed his true nature, that revealed the hypocrisy, the pretentiousness, the desperation. I anonymously sent them to the company, and soon, the rumors started to spread, the whispers, the pointed fingers. My boss was furious, he was enraged, but he was also helpless, because he knew that I had uncovered his secret, that I had seen behind the mask. And then, the inevitable happened: the moment of truth. He was fired, he was gone, and I was finally free. I felt a sense of satisfaction, of justice, of vindication, knowing that I had taken down a tyrant, that I had brought a monster to his knees. But as I reflected on the experience, I realized that it had taught me a valuable lesson, a lesson about the power of words, about the impact of poetry. I learned that sometimes the pen can be mightier than the sword, that cleverness can be a powerful tool for revenge, but also for change, for growth, for transformation. And I wondered, what other secrets were hiding in plain sight? What other stories were waiting to be told? What other poems were waiting to be written? The experience had left me with more questions than answers, but it had also given me a newfound appreciation for the art of poetry, for the way it can be used to heal, to hurt, to inspire. I realized that my boss, the failed poet, had actually taught me something valuable, something that would stay with me for the rest of my life: the importance of empathy, of understanding, of seeing beyond the surface. And so, I continued to write, to pour my heart and soul into my poetry, to use my words to make a difference, to leave a mark. The moment I realized my boss was a failed poet was the moment I discovered my own power, my own voice, my own story. I was no longer just an employee. I was a poet, a writer, a force to be reckoned with. And I knew that nothing would ever be the same again, that I would always be driven to create, to inspire, to make a difference, one poem at a time.